Hi everyone, it's Lou Collins for CraftStash, and today I would love to show you a card tutorial. I'm going to be making this camera themed card, but I'm only going to be using my nesting dies. It's so much fun and you are going to be able to put this together with any generic nesting dies you have, but we've got some fantastic new ones at CraftStash and they will be linked down below for you to check out too. So let's get straight into the tutorial. So I'm starting by breaking down all the different shapes from my nesting dies to show you exactly how the camera is put together. So as you can see, I've got everything cut out and it definitely doesn't look like a camera at the moment. It's amazing what shapes you can create using your nesting dies. So I have used a couple of rectangles. These, as I say, are nested rectangles. You can see there I've got a large one, I've got one that's probably two sizes smaller, and then the next one down from that as well. I have also got a square, and this square needs to be able to fit within the middle sized rectangle. I've got a tiny square and a tiny circle. These are the smallest in the die sets. I've then got the circles, and for these particular ones I've actually used the stitched and pierced ones, and these are nested. It doesn't really matter whether you go with stitched or pierced for your largest circle. Just the fact that it's got some design on there is great. I've actually gone with pierced. The stitching doesn't show because we cut this circle out by cutting them both together, but I have cut a second of the largest circle, and that's a complete one without this cut from the middle. Then I've gone back to my plain circles and I've cut 6 of these, and these need to be quite small, kind of around about half the size or just a little bit smaller than the largest circle. So now these are all cut out. I'm also going to be using my Creative for Craft Products bookbinding glue. Any wet glue will work. You could even use foam if you want to add dimension to the layers. I've got a pair of tweezers just to help me position items. I am going to be also using my Creative Craft Products scoreboard just to add a little bit of texture to one of the layers. And I'm going to be using a tiny bit of ink, and that's black soot and vintage photo. So any black and brown ink with blending brushes will work. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this smallest rectangle that we've cut, and I'm going to put that to my scoreboard. So on my scoreboard, I'm just going to be using my scoring tool that comes with the board, and I'm going to score lines down at each increment. Now these are 1/16 of an inch in spaces, so I'm just going to score down each and every one of these. The cardstock I'm using is around about 250 GSM, so it die cuts beautifully. And this one is one from the brand Sizzix, from their Opulence range, and this has a slight shimmer, so it's not quite solid black, it's more of a charcoal colour, and the charcoal colour has, like I say, this shimmer, this pearlescent to it. This is just going to add a little bit of difference to the black cardstock and the silver mirror card that I'm going to be adding in a little while. So you can see I've added all my score lines, and when I turn that over, we've got this great ribbed effect. This just looks like a little bit of texture that you'd have on maybe the plastic, the hard plastic around some cameras, and it's going to help this stand out from the layer underneath it. Now around the edge of this rectangle and the largest one, I'm going to be inking in black ink. I've actually used my dye ink for this to make sure it's the strongest black that I've got. If you use a pigment ink, particularly the Distress Oxide ink pads, that's more of a charcoal and it doesn't really show up on this cardstock. So you can see I've got a bit of a vintage edge around that one, and I'm going to do the same on this one too. Now let's start layering this camera together. I'm going to take the scored panel, apply glue all the way to the back. Like I say, if you prefer, you could do this with foam. And I'm going to place that in the centre using the landscape, just slightly lower than central. Then I'm going to bring in the gold mirror card circle that we cut out. That's going to go up here. That's kind of like a flash for a camera, so the flashlight that you get there. Now over the top of this we need to put our lens, so we're going to use these two circles that we've cut. Now the outer circle, as I say, are both the same one, and in this one I've used the smallest, or the smaller circle, one down, to cut the centre out. This is going to be the kind of like the glass for the lens. This is going to be the outer silver frame, and then I'm going to be using these circles here. So I've cut 6 small ones. I'm going to be gluing these onto my base. Now you may want to play around with positioning these first. What I want these to look like is a shutter that's sort of half open, half closed. So this is from a solid black cardstock. So I'm using a little bit of wet glue. Now the cardstock that I'm gluing onto, the blue colour cardstock, that's actually a little bit of a glossy surface, so it will take a little bit longer for the glue to hold, which is a good thing because I want to be able to move these circles about as I tack them down, just to make sure they are in the correct place. So I'm tucking each one under the last, and then for this last one I then need to tuck this under like so. So we've got all 6 running in a line together. Make sure that your, as such, it's almost a hexagon in the centre, is central, and press those down. Now we can flip this over, and when this glue has all dried, you can just take some scissors, or you can go back in with your die and cut around the edge there. So just using those circles, I've now got a shutter effect in my camera lens, which is just really cool. So I'm going to glue the silver frame over the top, and then I'm going to put it on here. But before I do that, I've got one more additional item to add, and that's this small silver square. And this is just going to tuck between the 2 layers, around about like somewhere like so. So let's put that square, and that's going to be the little sort of handle for the focus. I'm going to use a few foam pads to raise this one up. So we can already see our camera coming together. Now we did also cut a middle-sized rectangle, and that is going to fit under here. So we're not actually using the whole rectangle. That's going to strengthen our camera though. So I'm going to apply glue to the back here. You can put this slightly offset if you like, and then we've also got the red square. It's so tiny I can barely pick it up, but this is going to be our little button for taking the photos, and you can just place that to the side here. Now of course all cameras are different, and you can really play around with your shapes, creating different elements. You can have more sort of flashes and buttons on there if you prefer. That's a very, very basic camera, but I think it's really cool. Now what we also did is cut a couple of extras. So we used a rectangle and cut a square out, and this is like a Polaroid. Now I've also cut the same rectangle from a magazine clipping. So this was just an advert. I think it's an advert for a car, but the background with the boat looks really cool as a photo inside the Polaroid frame that we've created using the dies as well. So I'm going to use my brown ink here just to go very, very lightly around the edge of the Polaroid frame, just on the inside here. And I'm going to brush a little bit of brown ink into the photo as well, or the picture from the magazine, just to kind of age that. I almost want it to be a little bit like a sepia tone. A little bit of colour's fine, but that will just to help dull it down a touch. There we go, that will look really cool. So I'm going to glue the 2 together, and then I'm just going to brush around the very outside of the frame with the same black as I did with the camera. To finish off this card, I've created a really simple distressed background, and I'm going to use some of the Creative Craft Products super stickers just to pop a sentiment on the front. They fit quite nicely on the camera there as well. So there's just one of the shapes that you can be creating with basic nesting dies, and this is why they are an essential for your crafting stash. Now the dies that I've used to create this card are all from the brand Creative Craft Products, and they are brand new. Now Creative Craft Products is an exclusive brand at CraftStash, and as you can see in this collection we have got multiple different shapes, and we've got different edges as well. So we have got the pierced and stitched, or stitched and pierced, and this is what I've used, for example, around the camera lens there. So you can see that beautiful stitching that just gets sort of scored into your cardstock or paper. And we've got these in rectangles, circles, squares, ovals, stars, hearts, and then we've also got a collection of the straight edges as well, so that they don't have the design detail. Here's just a few examples on a magnetic sheet so you can see them. You can see the sizes. These are not your super sized large dies that we've seen from Creative Craft Products in the past. These are the ones that are going to be perfect for your embellishments, for your smaller cards and tags alike. Now, as always, we are going to have a link to all of these products down in the description below. There's also a link directly to the products just here. You can subscribe to the CraftStash YouTube channel by clicking this button just here, and we think you're really going to love this video just here. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you again soon.